Greetings, bienvenue, and welcome to the channel. Come, sit. Today we are talking about one of my favorite topics to discuss on the channel, that being horror. Why? Well, because the slasher genre has been going nuts recently. Take, for example, the recent redesign of Jason Voorhees by Universal. We also have Welcome to Derry, a spin-off of Stephen King's It, the movie from 2017 and sequel in 2019, dropping on HBO Max later this year. The Chucky series was a smash hit, Terrifier 4 drops at the end of 2026, and the Annabelle doll made famous through the Conjuring universe of movies has escaped. That's in the news, that's a thing, that's happening right now.
Tonight, demon doll fever gripping the internet.
But maybe you didn't grow up with horror. Maybe you just want to dip your toes into the water, see what sticks. Well, that's what we're going to be doing today as we turn famous slashers into Pokemon. Let's get started. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy. And let's start spitting out Pokemon like it was fresh pea soup. I wanted to start out first with our possessed doll archetype. There are a number of franchises that utilize this as a horror scheme, focusing all the way back in Poltergeist, but today we're going to be looking at Child's Play, released in 1988 with the main character of Chucky. Chucky then appeared in Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, and Child's Play the reboot back in 2019, where he was voiced by the Joker, Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill. We also get to see Chucky in a couple different franchises and movies throughout, making a big appearance in Ready Player One as a usable item type of character. But again in 2021, we get to see him revitalized as we return back to his roots from Child's Play 1988 with the Chucky TV show. It was definitely a show, and it started out in 2021 and ran for 3 seasons. So I wanted to focus on this type of look and design for our first Pokemon here. While I didn't want to do a one-to-one drawing of just Chucky in the Pokemon art style, I wanted to capture some of the parts that make Chucky who he is. That being the possessed doll, brought in by the spirit of Charles Lee Ray. Here I wanted something that felt off-putting and weird, where you didn't quite know where the real Pokemon was, whether it was in the upper head type of area or the lower torso. So I played with that, especially knowing what I wanted to do with this design and giving it a branched evolution. I knew that I had a couple areas that I had to suffice for that type of design. So here it is. Chucky, the doll Pokemon. Some say that these dolls became possessed by those passed on, while others claim they were manufactured this way. Whatever the reason, this Pokemon is known to turn on its own trainer, and other Pokemon as well, only to be found weeping afterwards. It's unknown what the true intentions of this Pokemon are, but it seems to push away just as much as it tries to pull in. No known manufacturer has admitted to its creation. But to more modern audiences, when I say possessed doll, you probably think of a very different doll, which is where our branched evolution starts to take place. The first is the female form of the evolution, that being focused on Annabelle. Now, if you don't know Annabelle, what? She's existed throughout several movies in the Conjuring universe, first appearing in The Conjuring, the first release of this franchise. That was followed by The Conjuring 2, The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It, The Conjuring Last Rites, and then the spin-off series like Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, Annabelle Comes Home, The Nun, and The Nun 2. So she's had a little bit of traveling been going on. Speaking of Annabelle traveling around, she's been in the news a lot lately as the real-world doll, some of you are just now finding out there's a real-world Annabelle doll, but yes there is, has been going on a little bit of a world tour. It's unknown quite what that story is right now, as there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of thought, a lot of theorizing, but trust and be safe knowing that she is back home in the museum. She originally is based on a Raggedy Ann doll, which is kind of interesting, as I've actually already done a Raggedy Ann style Pokemon when we did the Amazing Digital Circus, focusing then on Ragatha. So you may see some similarities between that Pokemon and this one. I tried to keep them distinct enough, but given that they have so much of the same inspiration, it does become difficult. Maybe check out that video and let me know what comparisons you may see between the two. While it is very easy and clear to fall into those same trappings, I tried to use that as a reference of what not to do this time, and used some of the aspects that I really enjoyed from that design and focused this one more on a reboot, a refranchising of the same type of character. So this is Annabelle, the doll Pokemon. Upon evolving, this Pokemon gains a further sentience. While it is more freely able to move around, it chooses most often to do so only when not being directly looked at. As they age, the stuffing protruding from their bodies grows longer and becomes more damaged. It's said that when they become too ragged, they may find a new doll to possess. Sometimes, this can force them to evolve backwards. Fun fact, the shiny form is based on the Nun from the other Conjuring spin-off. But while possessed dolls are one side of the coin, the other side is dolls that are used more as a symbology, as a visual interface for what this killer or slasher may be planning. So I focused then on looking at Saw and Jigsaw as the character that we'll be focusing on. Now, when we're talking about movie franchises that have gone on for quite some time, specifically in the horror universe, Saw is up there on the list. Back in 2004, we were introduced to the Saw franchise, followed up in 2005 by Saw 2, 2006 with Saw 3, 2007 with Saw 4, 2008 with Saw 5, and 2009 with Saw 6, only to have this interrupted by Saw 3D the next year. A good 7 years later, we were introduced once again to the Saw franchise with Jigsaw, and then in 2021 with Spiral. Now we have back on track another set of movies coming out with Saw X on 2023 and Saw XI or Saw 11 in 2025. While this franchise has been going for quite some time, it looks like it's not getting anywhere near to losing steam, and I am terrified about it. While I do love horror movies, the Saw franchise is definitely one that hits a certain part of my brain, and I don't thoroughly enjoy it. So for the design here, I went with something that really captures the innate symbology of the character of Jigsaw, focusing to pretty much translate that mask of almost one-to-one into the design here, giving it a little bit of a ghostly atmosphere and interface with the rest of the body, but using some of the key aspects that we saw in that previous form, brought in and amped up into this shape and design. So this is Terrifier, the doll Pokemon. When Chucky is allowed to play into its darker tendencies, it can evolve into this Pokemon. Obsessed with causing chaos and panic, this Pokemon is seldom found in the wild, as they are immediately captured by authorities or by unknown trainers. They seem to enjoy tinkering, and the shiny is based on old camera night vision that tended to turn everything green. Switching gears, let's look at another famous horror creature, that of course being Pennywise, created by Stephen King. Stephen King has written 58 books, and if I'm not looking directly at him, I assume that he's writing another one. So when focusing on this character, there's a lot that we can do. There's a couple different areas that we can look at for inspiration, but I really wanted to focus more so on the 2017-2019 remakes of the films. I know that that's gonna bum some people out because the Tim Curry version is so iconic and so classic, and I'm not saying that there's anything bad about it. In fact, I enjoy those ones a lot more. Here I wanted to get something that's a little bit more familiar to modern audiences. So I went with that red, kind of wavy, wiggly, whirly hair, that grayish type of suit, and of course, those big, dead eyes. A lot that we could play with here, a lot that we can take into account for a couple different versions of the character, but ultimately I wanted to look at references like Mr. Mime, who is terrifying on his own, but play into this just a bit more. I also got to reference some of my previous work when I was working on a Roblox game for a different company and use some of the things that we did there. And I'm really glad when I get to bring in stuff from other projects and inspirations and use them to make something brand new. So while it was a ton of fun, while it was a creative exercise, it was really nice to dig into my old artwork and see what we can bring back. I highly recommend that for any artist. Go back and look at your old stuff. It may be cringy, it may be outdated, but it could inspire different redesigns of stuff that you're currently working on. And if you do so, I'd love to hear your story about it. Down below, we have our Discord in the description. Check that out, hop in, and let me know what you're reworking, what you've been playing with that's an old design. I'd love to hear about it. And while you're there, don't forget to drop into the comments and let me know what abilities you think all of these Pokemon should have. You guys are so much better at that than I am that I, at this point, don't even try, because coming up with new abilities or finding abilities that already exist and thrusting them upon these Pokemon is so far out of my wheelhouse. I'm a design guy, not a game mechanic guy, so let me know down in the comments. Bobbit, the Devour Pokemon. At one time, their clownish figure was used to lure in unsuspecting victims, but over time, as clown imagery has evolved into something more off-putting, they often go hungry. Some have adapted other ways of luring in prey, like contorting their bodies into ballooning shapes. The name is a reference on Robert, which is known to be Pennywise's official, unofficial name, and the shiny is based on old-timey movies. Now, one of my favorite characters for the design alone from slasher movies has to be Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Part 2. Yes, I know I'm gonna have a lot of people saying, hey, wait, no, Friday the 13th is Jason, has always been Jason. He's been with the franchise since Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 3, Friday the 13th the final chapter, Friday the 13th 5, and Friday the 13th 6, as well as Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and all the other spin-offs and appearances that he's made. Truth be told, it wasn't until Part 2 that we actually encountered Jason Voorhees as the villain of the movie. I'm not going to spoil who the villain is in the first movie as much as I already have, but if you haven't watched these classic slashers, I highly suggest it. Friday the 13th kind of came out in the heyday of this genre, coming alongside other characters like Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy Krueger, which, weirdly enough, shares the name of my doctor. It's weird. My primary physician has the name of a famous movie slasher. It's weird. We joke about it all the time, but I have to wonder how much it does get to him. But I'm babbling, I'm derailing. Let's get back onto this character. I really struggled here because I didn't want to make another sheer humanoid type of figure. So I focused instead on using that pivotal mask more so as a tribal mask and making this thing feel a little bit more feral and wild. I decided a really cool aspect would be to make it always feel like it's drowning, making this wispy hair out of the back flow a little bit more like water, and I dig that. That was actually one of the key aspects that I wanted from the very beginning of the design. I've designed this character probably 2 or 3 times, and every single time that is a feature that I've decided I want to keep. I also had to bring in the machete, so decided to make the hands into these scyther-esque type of stabbing utensils. I really dig it, I really like the look. It may feel like this is a weird Pokemon, but I really gave myself some new context and structures on how I wanted to work with this design. I also decided that I wanted to make it ice type, which I know a lot of people are gonna say, isn't it water? Didn't he drown? Isn't that the whole thing? But I wanted to play up a little bit more of that cold and ghostly type of atmosphere, and it felt like I could capture a lot more of that with ice over water. Who knows, maybe I'll revisit this and go with a more watery route. Maybe I'll give it a branched evolution at some point. But for the moment, here's what we got. Vorhees, the drowned Pokemon. Born of spirits trapped under frigid water, this Pokemon is slow-moving but vengeful. Their hair whips and flows as though they were underwater, even on dry land. They do, however, form close bonds with their trainers, with some trainers even lashing out to defend the Pokemon. Whether this is through sheer compassion or a possessed psyche is yet unknown. The shiny is based on Jason X, where we get to see a future Jason in space. Yeah, that's a real thing that happened. We don't talk about it. Now, as we moved from the 80s into the 90s, slashers started to become a little bit more self-referential. They began to understand the context of the type of movie that they were, and with that, Scream was born. And since its inception and its dissection of the tropes and archetypes associated with the genre, Scream has gone on and done, boss numbers. In 1996, we had the first Scream movie, followed by Scream 2 just 1 year later. It took us 3 years to get to Scream 3, and 11 years to get to Scream 4, and then another 11 to get to Scream, the remake, followed by Scream 6 and Scream 7 coming out in 2026. In case you don't know about Scream 7, we're having the return of Matthew Lillard, who played one of the antagonists of the first Scream movie. It's like this guy is always coming back, and I am here for it. I am such a fan of this series and how it deconstructs and reanalyzes the genre that it's in. It feels like the entire series is breaking the fourth wall while also existing within the same canon that it's set up. It is such a weird and bizarre type of movie series that plays upon itself while also acknowledging that it itself is in the genre that it is lampooning. I could talk about it all day, but for this design, I wanted to go with something simple, something easy, because the whole idea of Ghostface is that he could be anybody. That's what makes the horror genre and the horror movie of this series so interesting. It's not some mythical or ghostly figure, it's someone that we've met. It turns this horror movie into a mystery movie. So for this Pokemon, I wanted to focus on that. I couldn't not include the mask, I couldn't not include the cloak, but one thing that I really wanted to do here was play into this adaptable type of feel, where this Pokemon has these two long fingers that can form themselves into a dagger. So while it is a Pokemon, an animal for all means here, it still plays into the idea that it is adapted to appear like a human. And I dig that. I dig that. I'm not apologizing. I dig it. Bello, the ghost-faced Pokemon. It lurks silently throughout urban areas, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. While many perceive it to be a wandering spirit, it is a corporeal being. Its two long fingers come together to form a dagger-like shape. In odd instances, it's been told that it can recover fully from fainting. It just seems like it always comes back. The shiny is based on the popularity of the ghost-faced mask, sparking numerous versions in Halloween stores, including a deep red version. Fun fact, the mask itself was meant to be a placeholder and was picked up from a Halloween store. So while many believe that the Halloween store is playing up the Scream type of aesthetic, it's actually the other way around. The movie played up the Halloween type of aesthetic by using your generic Halloween mask. But let's take a more modern look at these type of horror movies. Rather than looking back at the 80s, the 90s, let's look at something that came out in 2022, that being Smile. Since this movie first released, it has taken the world by storm, unleashing the second movie in October of 2024. It's one that people are still talking about and I see brought up on my TikTok all the time. I feel like I can't go 2 swipes without running into another scene from Smile 2. So of course I had to bring it into account here. While it's not necessarily a slasher, I feel like it still fits into the modern horror tropes that we've been seeing. The idea that there is something coming after you that you just can't seem to stop. There are other movies that do this that I really like. If you haven't seen It Follows, it's a very similar type of premise, and while it is a little bit more adult, I feel like it handles the same type of idea. This thing, this entity, this monstrosity just kind of existing and wanting to focus in on its victim. So while it isn't a slasher, I feel like it still fits the slasher archetype because it's still someone running from something. So I wanted to play into this and that viral aspect of the design. Play into that with this bug type Pokemon that uses the wings and antenna of its body to simulate this big spooky smiling face. We've seen this a lot with other Fakemon and Pokemon designs. I specifically think of Masquerain when looking at this type of idea. And while I do love Masquerain's whole vibe, I wanted to expand on it. Build it into something that's a little bit more clear, a little bit more visceral, feels gross. So I used reds and yellows to make the color of this Pokemon so that it feels a little bit more organic, a little bit more flayed, drawing in the ideas of blood and muscle tissue to play up the idea here. Almost like the smile of the wings and antenna itself are painful for the Pokemon. I also played up that viral aspect by giving it this huge stinger. I picture it injecting other Pokemon and infecting them with some sort of virus that allows this Pokemon to continue existing. Maybe something like forming polyps within the Pokemon that create these spores that allow this Pokemon to continue to exist. I don't fully know. I'm interested what you guys think and how that would work. It's a very bizarre and different mechanic that I feel would have a lot of energy within the Pokemon universe. So this is Laflut, the Smile Pokemon. More a virus than a Pokemon, it infects cocooned bug types so that they may evolve into it rather than their standard form. Its gruesome smile patterned wings warn that nearby Pokemon may be infected. While they tend to focus their abilities on bug types and weaker Pokemon, they have been known to target human trainers for infection as well. So who was your favorite? Who are you adding onto the team? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, let me know if there was a slasher who's a favorite of yours who I happen to miss. I want to touch back onto this series, so I need some fodder. Let me know, please. You may also have noticed that there's a specific slasher from a specific series of games and movies that's become a little bit more prevalent lately. But that's a video for another day, specifically Friday, so stick around for that. But with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll catch you in the next one. But before we go, it's time to shout out some of our higher tier supporters over on the Patreon. Those are going to be Topaz, Mario Panita, Dan Hassel, Chompy Catchan, Kobo4231, Elandriel, Sky, Yuja Zakaki, Drake Null, Jeremy Sunday, Justin Grenier, Siren Shadows, Kaylin Cat, Stix TV, and Dan Bush. Thank you guys so much for this support. And while we're at it, let's talk about our YouTube memberships. You can become a YouTube member for just $3 a month. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. You know how I know you didn't know that? Because you're not a member yet. When you're a member, you get into our monthly drawings as well as get access to these videos early. Some of our YouTube members, as they currently stand, are Moxie, Echo Arashi, Reggie Hustle Jr., Liam Wood, Linksia, RJ, Zed Ravenmore, Siren Shadows, Somni Stars, Kaylin Cat, and of course, our lovely Crimbo McSwizzle. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the channel and allowing me to make this weird. It's weird content, right? I'm not imagining this. This is weird content. This shouldn't be on the internet. Why am I doing this? I don't know, but I'm gonna keep doing it, and I'm gonna keep doing it for you. Daniel. See you in the next one. Daniel.